So, picture this. I'm finally moving into my new place, excited to throw a housewarming party with some friends and family. It's been a long time coming, and everything is set up perfectly: good food, good music, and a lot of laughter. But little did I know, my neighborhood's HOA president, who everyone just calls Karen, had a totally different idea of how things should go. Karen is the type of person who loves to control everything, from what flowers you plant to how many guests you can have. She's been watching me closely since I moved in, and honestly, I thought I was just another new neighbor trying to settle down. But then, out of nowhere, she calls 911 during my party. Yep, you heard that right. She called the cops on my housewarming, claiming there was some kind of disturbance. Here's the twist: what Karen didn't realize is that my housewarming was actually packed with cops. Not random officers, but my own colleagues from the department. They came to celebrate with me, completely undercover from her point of view. So when the real police showed up, it wasn't the surprise she expected. It was more like a showdown. This story isn't just about one annoying HOA president or a crazy neighbor drama. It's about how misunderstandings, assumptions, and entitlement can lead to some wild and unexpected moments. And trust me, what happened next was way beyond what I ever imagined. I'm not going to spoil the whole story now. But let's just say the night didn't end with me just opening presents or cutting a cake. There was tension, confusion, and a whole lot of questions that need answers. So stick around, because this isn't over, yet Karen's next move might just blow your mind. Before that chaotic night, I thought my new neighborhood was just a quiet, normal place. I'd heard rumors about Karen, the HOA president, with a reputation for being, well, a bit too controlling, but I didn't think it would affect me so soon. When I moved in, I just wanted to settle in and enjoy my new home. Little did I know, Karen was already watching every little thing I did, like she was waiting for a reason to jump in and make trouble. The HOA rules here are strict, and Karen takes them seriously. She's the kind of person who measures your lawn, complains about parking, and sends out emails that sound more like threats than neighborhood updates. I had tried to keep things low-key, not wanting to cause any issues. But the housewarming party was supposed to be my chance to celebrate, to make friends, and to finally relax after all the moving chaos. What made things even more complicated was that I work in law enforcement, and a few of my colleagues came over to support me. They weren't in uniform, just friends coming over to hang out. But Karen didn't know that. To her, it looked like a loud, suspicious gathering, and that's when she called 911. The tension was already building when the police car showed up, flashing lights and all, turning what should have been a fun night into a full-on confrontation. Everyone was confused. My friends, the neighbors, even the officers on the scene. No one expected Karen's reaction. The whole situation felt like it was spiraling out of control. And I started wondering if this was really about the party or something deeper. Why was Karen so determined to make a scene? What was she really trying to protect? The answers weren't clear yet, but one thing was obvious. This was just the beginning of something way bigger than a simple housewarming gone wrong. After that night, things didn't just calm down, they actually got more complicated. Karen's call to 911 wasn't just a one-time overreaction. It felt like a deliberate move, almost like she was trying to send a message. From the moment the cops showed up, the neighborhood buzzed with whispers and sideways glances. Some neighbors seemed relieved to see the police, while others looked uncomfortable, like they didn't want to get involved but couldn't look away either. On my side, I was stuck trying to explain the whole situation without sounding defensive. My friends, who were all off-duty officers, stood by me, but even they were surprised at how quickly Karen escalated things. It felt like she was playing a power game, using the HOA rules and her position to control more than just the neighborhood's appearance. There were rumors she had personal grudges or maybe felt threatened by me moving in. But why? What was I doing to make her so determined? Meanwhile, the HOA meetings became tense. Karen's influence was cliche, controlled the agenda, picked who spoke, and pushed strict enforcement of every minor rule. Some neighbors whispered about standing up to her, while others preferred to stay silent, afraid of becoming the next target. I started hearing about past incidents where Karen had gone after residents for things like having too many guests or even kids playing in the wrong spots. There was also the question of the police department. My colleagues who came to the party were caught in the middle. Some officers felt awkward about being involved in a neighborhood dispute, especially when it was their own department's officer at the center. It raised questions about professionalism and personal boundaries, and whether Karen's call to 911 was justified or just an abuse of power. All of this made me wonder, was this just about a noisy party, or was there something deeper going on, something about control, reputation, or even fear? As tensions grew, it became clear that the story was far from over. Karen wasn't done yet, and neither was the fight for peace in my new home. As days went by, the tension in the neighborhood became almost unbearable. Karen seemed to be watching my every move, her eyes following me like she was waiting for another reason to call the cops again. I kept thinking maybe I was overreacting, but then small things started happening. Strange notes slipped under my door. Subtle complaints about noise, even when everything was quiet. It felt like a quiet war, with Karen leading the charge. At the same time, my friends from the department kept checking in, worried about what might come next. They told me that Karen's call to 911 had caused some serious chatter at the station. Some officers were frustrated that their off-duty colleagues got dragged into neighborhood drama, while others wondered if Karen's actions were crossing a line. But no one had clear answers, and that uncertainty made things even more tense. The HOA meetings grew more heated. Karen used every opportunity to tighten her grip, bringing up supposed violations that felt more like personal attacks. Some neighbors started to speak out quietly, but the fear of retaliation was real. It wasn't just about rules anymore. It was about control, power, and who could hold the neighborhood in their hands. I could feel the pressure building inside. Me too. What started as excitement over my new home was turning into a fight I didn't expect. I wondered how far Karen would go. Would she keep trying to make my life miserable? Or was there some hidden reason behind her actions? Then came the night when everything came to a head. I was expecting a quiet evening, trying to avoid trouble. But Karen had other plans. What happened next changed everything: my house, my peace, even the whole neighborhood's idea of what community really means. The tension was thick, the stakes higher than ever, and I knew this wasn't just about a party or an HOA dispute. Anymore, the question was, who would come out on top? And at what cost? Just when I thought things couldn't get any more intense, the situation took an unexpected turn that caught me completely off guard. After that tense night, I started hearing whispers about Karen's past stories no one really wanted to talk about openly. Apparently, she wasn't just your average HOA president obsessed with rules. There were rumors that she had clashed with law enforcement before, and not in a good way. Some said she had a personal history with the police department that went beyond neighborhood disputes. At first, I didn't know what to make of it. But then, I noticed subtle changes in how Karen acted around meals, about rules, and more about control. Almost like she knew something I didn't. That's when I realized the calls to 911 might have been more than just overzealous complaints. It felt like she was testing the waters, trying to push boundaries to see how far she could go. Things escalated quickly when I discovered Karen had started gathering a small group of neighbors who shared her views. They weren't just disgruntled residents, they seemed organized, almost like a little faction within the community. They began showing up at my door, asking questions, making veiled threats, and trying to intimidate me. The housewarming drama had grown into a full-blown neighborhood conflict, and I was right in the center of it. Meanwhile, my colleagues in the police department warned me to be careful. Karen's history with law enforcement was apparently complicated, and some officers were concerned this could spiral into something bigger than just HOA drama. The stakes were rising fast, and I realized that what started as a simple celebration had uncovered a deeper, more tangled web of power struggles, secrets, and grudges, with Karen's moves becoming bolder and the tension mounting on all sides. I knew I was heading toward a breaking point. The question wasn't just if this would blow up, but when. And what would it cost me and everyone involved when it did? The night everything came to a head was nothing like I expected. Karen showed up at my door, flanked by a few of her so-called supporters, ready to confront me face to face. She accused me of breaking HOA rules, of causing chaos, and worse. She claimed the police presence at my party was a threat to the neighborhood's safety. But I wasn't backing down. I calmly told her that those officers were my friends and colleagues, there to celebrate, not to cause trouble. That's when I decided to call in a favor. I reached out to one of the senior officers in my department, who agreed to come over not as a guest, but to observe and make sure things didn't escalate. The presence of an official made Karen pause, and soon enough, the truth began to surface. It turned out Karen had a history of stirring conflict wherever she went, using the HOA as a tool to control and intimidate others. The rumors about her past with law enforcement were true. She had a long record of complaints and even some disciplinary actions against her name. With that information laid out, the senior officer made it clear that Karen's behavior was crossing the line into harassment. The HOA was being warned that if she continued, she would face consequences not just from the community, but legally as well. Karen's power play started to unravel in front of everyone. Just when I thought it was over, the final twist hit. Karen, cornered and desperate, revealed she wasn't acting alone. There was someone higher up in the HOA board backing her. Someone who didn't want a newcomer like me shaking things up. That meant this fight wasn't just about me or even Karen. It was about a deeper struggle for control of the entire neighborhood. The room went silent. The conflict had escalated from a noisy housewarming party to something much bigger than any of us imagined. And while Karen's grip was weakening, the real challenge was only just beginning. After that intense confrontation, things finally started to shift. The senior officer's involvement sent a clear message. Karen's behavior wouldn't be tolerated anymore. The HOA board, shaken by the revelations, launched an investigation into the leadership and their handling of neighborhood disputes. Slowly, Karen's influence began to fade as more neighbors stepped forward, ready to stand up for a community built on respect and control. I focused on rebuilding trust with those around me. Some neighbors had been too afraid to speak up before. But now, with Karen's grip loosening, people started to open up. We began organizing informal gatherings, not parties that made Karen nervous, but simple get-togethers to connect and rebuild the sense of neighborhood that had been missing. My colleagues from the department even offered to help with community events, hoping to bridge the gap between residents and law enforcement in a positive way. As for Karen, she eventually stepped down from her role, realizing her tactics no longer worked. The HOA brought in new leadership, committed to fairness and transparency. It wasn't a perfect fix overnight, but it was a start. Looking back, this whole experience taught me a lot about how power can be misused and how important it is to stand up for yourself and your community. It also showed me that sometimes the biggest battles aren't the loudest ones, but the quiet fights for respect and understanding. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this story, it's that every neighborhood deserves a space where people feel safe and welcome. And sometimes, Change starts with just one person willing to push back against entitlement and unfairness, even when it feels like the odds are stacked against you. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. Stay tuned, because there's always more stories to tell.